regrese a la residencia.
Where's Hugo Chavez? Arrested and detained at a military base, he was soon released and returned to the presidential palace.
Todos tenemos que rectificar muchas cosas para que volvamos a la calma, al trabajo, al empuje y a la construcción de la Venezuela bolivariana, para que sigamos construyendo la patria a nuestros hijos, a nuestros nietos, para que sigamos haciendo realidad el sueño.
But then again, Hugo Chavez is no stranger to coup d'etats. Five army units, led by Colonel Chavez, move into Caracas. The main objective? Detain President Perez, arrest the high command, and establish a new government. One army unit was to grab the president, who was out of the country, at the airport upon his arrival, but they were unable to do so. In fact, the conspiracy had been betrayed the previous day. When President Perez announced to a startled nation that a military rebellion was in the process of being crushed, Chavez, unable to take Caracas, realized his coup had failed. Chavez then asked to speak on television so that the other officers who had seized cities throughout the country would surrender peacefully to avoid further bloodshed.
Primero que nada, quiero dar buenos días a todo el pueblo de Venezuela. Y este mensaje bolivariano va dirigido a los valientes soldados que se encuentran en el Regimiento de Paracaidistas Aragua y en la Brigada Blindada de Valencia. Compañeros, lamentablemente, por ahora, los objetivos que nos planteamos no fueron logrados en la ciudad capital. Es decir, nosotros acá en Caracas no logramos controlar el poder. Ustedes lo hicieron muy bien por allá, pero ya es tiempo de evitar más derramamiento de sangre, ya es tiempo de reflexionar y vendrán nuevas situaciones y el país tiene que enrumbarse definitivamente hacia un destino mejor. Así que oigan mi palabra, oigan al comandante Chávez que les lanza este mensaje para que por favor reflexionen y depongan las armas, porque ya en verdad los objetivos que nos hemos trazado a nivel nacional es imposible que los logremos. Compañeros, oigan este mensaje solidario, les agradezco su lealtad, les agradezco su valentía, su desprendimiento, y yo ante el país y ante ustedes asumo la responsabilidad de este movimiento militar bolivariano.
It was that speech that enamored him to the nation. But before we examine its impact, let's go back in time and take a look at the reasons why Hugo Chavez tried to overthrow the old regime.
There's a large segment of the population that has been forgotten.
Traditional models to deal with issues of poverty, political and social exclusion, they don't work anymore.
They certainly don't. What you're seeing is the downside of economic austerity measures imposed by the International Monetary Fund. Although meant to resuscitate the economy, riots broke out and the country rapidly spiraled out of control. The government responded with its usual antidote: repression. Costing human lives, 2,000 dead.
We have 80% of people that needs to live in a decent way, needs education, and need health.
Majority of the people of Venezuela, we are poor, you know. We don't have money. We don't have a place to live, you know. You understand what I mean?
Which brings us back to Lake Maracaibo.
Well, because of those reserves and the location of Venezuela in the Americas, you have to see the globe, and you will find out that other than the Middle East, Venezuela is the country with the most reserves, and in the Western Hemisphere. So we have natural clients: North America, Caribbean and Central America, and Europe.
The amount of money that has actually come into this country, everybody should be wealthy. And what has happened is that there's been a few who've taken that money and gone away with it. Political parties have been involved with that. The oil industry has been involved with that. And there's a large segment of the population that has been forgotten.
Well, in terms of the heavy crude oil, we have the Orinoco oil belt with the largest reserves worldwide. So actually at the same production of today, we may be pumping oil for 200, 300 years. There are the largest reserves in the Orinoco oil belt, even larger than Saudi Arabia reserves. In terms of the light oil, our reserves are around 40 million barrels. So it's a lot less, but even though there's those are big reserves also for 20 or more years, is my thought.
When foreign oil companies ran the oil production, the Venezuelan state was quite vigilant over their operations. So in the mid-1970s, the Venezuelan government collected 80 cents in royalties, rents, and taxes for every dollar of oil exports generated by Exxon, Gulf, and Shell. And then
in 1976, on the 1st of January, where the Venezuelan oil industry was nationalized, and we formed the Venezuelan National Industries PDVSA, Petróleos de Venezuela.
it was at that time that Venezuela had a standard of living comparable to that of Spain. And that's also when things began to fall apart. Remember this guy? President Carlos Andrés Perez was given carte blanche by Congress to spend oil revenues as he saw fit. His projects, aside from leaving Caracas with lots of cool modern skyscrapers, were abysmal failures, characterized by poor planning and
Corruption has been in the way of life of this country for the last 50 years, and I think even further back. But corruption has magnified because of the oil. Oil makes you wealthy very, very fast without having to work for it.
Let me give you a figure, simple figure. PDVSA himself was producing actually 60 billion US dollars and only was given $10 billion. What happened with the other 50 or $40 billion?